Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday yet again. It's time for a shop update. Sit back, get cozy, get yourself a snack, nice cool beverage, and let's get talking about some of these cars. This week has been another productive one here at the shop. I know I say that every week. We are actually we're actually pretty gosh darn productive most weeks. So let's get into start talking about it though. Let's get into it. Let's start chit-chatting about how productive we've been. Start you out. It's the Green Tr3. It looks like it hasn't moved, but I promise you it has moved under its own power. It's driven around. I've driven it out. I've blasted it up and down the streets of our fine neighborhood, much to the chagrin of our neighbors. It's decent. It's got some bugs. It's got some things that need to be worked out, and I'll talk about those just a little bit. It was a lot of hard work. I didn't really want to work on this car all week, but I ended up working on this car all week. Everything that I went after, everything that I tried to address, everything that I tried to tune or adjust needed major servicing. This car is a good 10, 20-foot car. It is not a concourse restored automobile. And it has been sitting, from my understanding, talking to our buddy, it has been sitting for 30 plus years in poor storage conditions. This thing was packed solid with sediment and rust and junk inside the engine. So it's been just fighting and battling really hard. One of the things was, last week I talked about this. My buddy came in, he fixed the intake manifold issues, which is great. It's awesome. As we started to deal with it, we turned the key after he fixed the manifold. Just let's see if it runs of its own accord, without really messing with it. Two things we figured out. Number one, carburetor's way out of whack. Number two, distributor also way out of whack. She was super advanced on distributor timing, and the carburetors, one of them was leaking really bad, and the other one actually wasn't even functioning. Wasn't doing anything, so nothing was happening with it. All easy things to fix once you start digging into them. So I pulled the carburetors off. I was just going to do a reseal and kind of readjust some stuff, but leave them they were a little bit dirty in some spots. But in all honesty, everything I took apart on them was like, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Every seal inside of them was either hard as a rock or totally gone. Stuff that you should be able to adjust, screws and adjustment, mixture adjustment, nuts and things like that, didn't want to move. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. The float adjustment was way off. Way off. I think it was an inch. It had like an inch to the fork. And I was like, I think this is supposed to be like 5/8 or something like that. And it was huge. It was enormous. Way too much. We ended up just doing a full rebuild on them. I took them apart. Christian went through. He polished up all the dash tops, as most people like them polished. We did a baking soda or a bicarbonate soda. It's baking soda. Media blasting on the carb bodies. Some people like the vapor blasting stuff these days. Some people like the soda blasting. We still use soda blasting. We're not posh enough for the vapor blasting. Okay, we're not that cool yet. Okay. In all honesty, I haven't really seen a huge benefit to it just yet. We turn out carburetors and they look phenomenal. So our process is tried and true, and it works really great, and it doesn't cost us any more money than what we've already spent. Perfect. Put full kits in it. New needles, new float needles and jets, new jets, new seals, and new throttle shafts, which is not, the way they sell the kits for carburetors, for SU carburetors from your big suppliers like your Moss Motors, is they have a master kit which comes with throttle shafts but not with needles, and then they have a minor kit which comes with needles but not throttle shafts. I would assume the master kit should come with the needles too. It's the master kit. It's the big kit, right? Nah, that's not. It's too. We can't be bothered. We put in new throttle shafts. I had all of that stuff in stock here, so it wasn't a big deal. The floats were good. They are the original brass floats. There's no upgrades on the floats with this one. There is a modern style float that's actually made out of kind of a plastic material that is impervious and isn't affected by modern fuels. It also, it can't get a hole in it. It always floats. You can't sink it, which is great. I haven't heard any really horrible things about those floats. So if you're doing your own H series carburetors, and they also have them for the HS carburetors, and I think for the HIF series carburetors as well, if you're doing your own carburetors at home, or if you're having somebody do them in your area or whoever, I highly recommend it. Just go for the new modern style float. I mean, I love polishing up the original brass floats that came out of these. I loved it. It was one of the first things I ever did. As a kid doing carburetors, I would polish the floats on these. Nobody ever sees it, but I knew that they were shiny, perfect brass beauties floating around in there. So we did that. We went through those. We did a valve adjustment on those as well. A couple of valves were out of spec. One was too tight. It was about 10 thousandths clearance. And the other one was too loose. It was about 16 thousandths clearance. I actually set all of these to 12. I think that you can set them between 10 and 14. It depends on your engine, depends on your camshaft, depends on the year, so on and so forth. These are set to 12. That seems really happy at that number. Oh, I'm blinded by sunlight. One of the other things that we had was the distributor was a little bit too far advanced when we first tried to start this old girl. The distributor's too far advanced. You gotta tackle some stuff, and poking out right there is the that's the distributor right there. I went to do an adjustment on that to pull timing out of it, and it wouldn't budge. So I thought, well, I didn't loosen the clamp enough. So I loosened the clamps more, and it wouldn't budge. I thought, sometimes the two bolts that retain the clamp can be holding the clamp in place. Let's loosen those up. Loosen those up too. Wouldn't budge. Took all the hardware out of the retaining clamp. I still couldn't get the distributor to turn or move in any way, shape, or form. So, knowing that I probably am going to have to pull the distributor out to get it to just turn in the engine so I can time it, I went in, pulled the cap off of it, checked inside. I also checked the vacuum advanced assembly. I pulled the vacuum on the vacuum advanced assembly, the plate inside, the points plate. That's the part that should move when you pull a vacuum on that. It didn't budge. Okay, so that's either a bad vacuum advance or the points plate stuck. Turns out points plates was stuck. Went in to do the mechanical advanced assemblies. You can kind of grab the shaft where the rotor mounts, and you can kind of wiggle it back and forth. And that kind of tells you that everything's moving down there anyway. Whether or not it's moving well is debatable, but it's moving. That didn't move at all. So it was yank the distributor, thoroughly go through it, basically rebuild it. This distributor already had a Pertronix set put on it. I'm not here to debate whether or not you're a fan of Pertronix or not. I'm not a huge fan. I think it has its places. On these cars, I tend not to recommend it. I'm not saying that you can't run it on your car. That's not what that means. I'm a bigger fan of points. Our motto here is points will get you home. When the Pertronix goes out, you don't get anywhere. You don't go anywhere. I have fixed points assemblies on these cars on the side of the road, in podunk towns, in the middle of nowhere, on interstate highways. I've fixed them with found objects, with hope and miracles, with bubble gum and tape. And it got me off the road, or it even got me home. So Pertronix does not give you that option. And the gains that you have with a Pertronix, again, I'm not really trying to debate this, but the gains that you have with the Pertronix is that it doesn't require servicing as often. It's not that it's actually more accurate, because the accuracy in this is based around the throttle, or based around the shaft in the distributor and the advancement mechanisms and all of that stuff. That's where accuracy comes from. It's not really more accurate in timing, and it's not really more dependable in timing, because these, I've replaced dozens of them because they've been bad. It's just you don't have to come in and set the points as often. That's really the benefit to it. And that does, that counts for something. Hey, I don't have to do as much maintenance on my sports car as often. That counts for something. If you are a Pertronix fan, if you like running Pertronix, I always suggest carrying a points plate for your distributor with a fresh set of points, condenser, all of that stuff. Basically a full tune-up kit. I always suggest carrying that in your glove box or your trunk. It's cheap insurance. It's really easy. And teach yourself how to do points. It's honestly not that hard. I know people get all fumbly about it. It's not that hard. Anyway, the last thing that we had to do on this was the overdrive unit. I rewired the entire overdrive wiring system. It was kind of hodgepodge out of found object. Most of this car, I feel, is hodgepodge out of found objects. But it was hodgepodge out of found objects from what I could tell. I tested the relay itself. It's an original Lucas relay. Tested that. Works fine. I tested the switch, which is an original Tr3 switch. It's not some aftermarket one. It's the original one, you know, it kind of hangs out the dash. It's big and bulky and weird looking. I have no idea why Triumph used that switch. There were better switches. And it's relayed. The whole system's relayed. This switch could have been anything. You guys use this wonky, weird one. Whatever. The switch tested fine. So I'm going to go down here. I didn't get an overdrive functioning when I took it out on a test drive today. There was no overdrive function. So I'm going to check. My wiring is good. My relay is good. I'm going to double check the switch again, make sure it's good. There's 2 lockout switches down here on the transmission itself. I'm going to check both of those. And of course, the last but not least, and tends to be the culprit, is the solenoid that turns the overdrive on. Check the low-hanging fruit first, the stuff that's, you know, easy to, you can bypass all of those switches and send 12 volts right to the solenoid. Hear it click. It works. It's fine. It should work. So as long as everything else upstream works, you should be good. So we got to diagnose that, figure out why it's not coming in, why it's not coming out. There is, of course, fluids in there. Those fluids need to be there. If they're not there, stuff doesn't tend to work very well either. So we need to make sure that we have fluid in there. But I'm going to diagnose the electrical side first before we get into any mechanical issues as to why the overdrive does not work. Once that's done, she's got a minor leak up at the thermostat housing. The thermostat housing physically has rotted through in a spot. I got to replace the thermostat housing. Not a huge job. It's not the end of the world. It's not that difficult. I do have other thermostat housings for Triumph TR3s, so I will pull one of those out of inventory and clean it up and put it on the car. Hopefully, I know I said this last video, and if you doubt it, go back and watch the last video, and you'll see me saying it. Go back, watch that other video, like that one, subscribe to the channel, come back, like this video, and we'll all be better for it, okay? And I'll be super appreciative. Anyway, where was I? I said last video that this was going to go home this past week. It clearly didn't. It's clearly here. It took a lot longer to get everything done. There was just so much wrong with it. I mean, we rebuilt those carburetors and rebuilt the distributor and rewired an overdrive system, all of that stuff, while also tending to our other duties and so on and so forth, and having other things come up in our lives all this week. Tuned it out, timed it out. Everything was good. And we kept finding other things. So it didn't leave this week, clearly. I'm hoping that Monday, Tuesday, I can get the rest of this stuff squared away and we can send this thing home, or at least it's done and can be picked up. It doesn't, it can sit here and be fine. It's not in my way. It's just, I don't want to keep working on it. I got other stuff to do here. Lots of other projects, lots of other customers that want to get their cars worked on. And that's, MGA, TR3, and Healy. These all want to get work done on them, and I got to get the work done on them. So we need that green one. We need that Frankenstein-y green one. We need that one out of here. So I'll square that away next week, and hopefully it'll be gone. Meantime, while I was, off screwing around with another one of these froggy-eyed Triumphs, Christian was doing his thorough cleaning and preparation of Lagonda parts. There's a bunch of small bit hardware and stuff like that I didn't clean up. I leave that to him because I ain't got time for this. He's really, really thorough with it. And when he gets it done, it's phenomenal. It looks like it's brand spanking new. Look at this bolt. It looks brand new. You'd never know that bolt was from the 30s. That being said, he's been doing a lot of that stuff, not only on these 3 carts, but he's also been doing it on the big bench here. A lot of cooling system stuff this week. Some of the heater core stuff, little bits and odds and ends and stuff like that. He's been doing a lot of small parts, so it's hard to kind of explain what he's been doing. It's a lot of hardware and bits and bobbles. he's been working on that, knocking that out. So progress is on the Lagonda still. It's not as much as I would like to get this week, but it's been pretty good. Next week, he's probably going to be bounced over to this Defender 90 project again. We need to get this thing, once TR3 is gone, I want this one out next. Once those two cars are gone, we are quite literally not taking any more work in. We're just not taking it in. I know I say that. There will be another one that pops up or something that comes in. But we're trying to hinder taking work in. We've got 3 restoration projects that we need to get back on the ball with doing a lot more work with. And we need to get this Defender 90 project out. We need to get that TR3 project out. We need to get back on the Defender 110 come and swap. But the big one is we got to get this Lagonda done. We have until September. And I don't want to wait until September. I want this thing running and driving at least 2 weeks before September, August sometime. I would love that. The clock is ticking, so we got a lot of work to do. Got to get it done. Got to get it knocked out. Anywho, that is all I have for this week. Thanks for joining me. I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and I hope you all have a lovely next week. I will see you again on Friday. Thanks.